You know what I absolutely love? Movies. Specifically, science fiction movies from the 80s and early 90s. Horror, action, comedy, the 80s really was the golden age of campy sci-fi flicks. Sure, pre-80s sci-fi has its gems, I mean, Star Trek, man. Flash Gordon, man. But there's something about 80s sci-fi and fantasy that just has this vibe, this mood, this feeling, this texture. What texture am I talking about? The texture is slimy. I mean, wow, there was a lot of slime in movies back then. Holy crap, the 80s sure loved slime. Movies for both young and old had it. From the scariest slime films like The Blob to the silliest slime films like Ghostbusters, things were just really goopy in the 80s. I mean, look no further than 1980s Nickelodeon for how obsessed we were with slime. Before Nick's entire image revolved around a little yellow dude, it revolved around pouring gallons of weird crap on people's heads. Meet Double Dare, a game show that involved doing ridiculous challenges, where the consequences for failure was pretty much always getting slimed. There was slime over here, slime over there, god, there were just slime all over this damn show. And Double Dare was so insanely successful that slime became Nickelodeon's brand. Before SpongeBob, there was green stuff. The Nickelodeon slime was such a key part of the brand's identity that Nickelodeon Studios used to have a slime fountain. Nick even sold slime products to the public in the form of GAC. GAC was the name used internally at Nick to refer to their signature slime. And I guess Nickelodeon figured if the public loved the slime so damn much, why not sell the stuff directly to them? And they were right. GAC sold like crazy. It's funny, but nowadays, kids playing with slime is pretty ubiquitous. Elmer's Glue makes special glue now specifically for creating slime to play with. People just love slime. I mean, let's be real, I'm a big fan of slime too, if you know what I'm saying, if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Let's go.
It's not gross! Before the modern slime, there was GAC. But before GAC, there was a product called Super Stuff from a company called Whammo, which was essentially the same thing. And before Super Stuff, there was Goop, which I've found insanely little information on. The fact that I know it exists at all is thanks to a blog called In the 70s that only alludes to its existence. Mystery Slime! I've heard from the actual boomers that I know that they used to break open thermometers and screw around with the mercury in there. Boomer slime was extremely hazardous, please don't do this. There are people that attribute the modern slime to the Mattel Toy Company because they had a product literally called slime back in 1976. So this is only kinda true. Obviously, Mattel didn't come up with the idea of toy goo, because goop existed. We already knew that. They also didn't coin the term slime, as the word has its origins as far back as Old English, where slime referred to sticky substances or mucus. However, the slime as we know it today, as seen on Nickelodeon and so prevalently used in the movies of the 80s, is credited as being Mattel's creation. A little green trash can filled with green gooey substance that was apparently hell to get off of fabric. How many old couches from the 70s and 80s do you think still have green stains on them to this day from this crap? You think to yourself, dang, there sure is a lot of slime everywhere. I'm just a guy living my best life in the 80s. There's no such thing as a smartphone, I've yet to be afflicted with an algorithm, and 16 Candles just showed me some tits, because there was no such thing as a PG-13 movie yet. Life is good. I'll head on over to the Kinoplex to avoid all this slime. What's this movie? Gremlins? Oh, it's PG-13. That's a new rating. That's crazy. I'm sure it's chock full of tits and has absolutely no slime. This movie has exactly 0 nudities and is chock full of slime. I mean, holy crap, this movie is slimy, dang. How many people do you think slipped on the slime during the production of Gremlins? At least one. It had to happen at least one time. One person did a silly slip in the silly slime, bonked their silly noggin and got a silly concussion. Silly lawsuit. Well, it's June 8th, 1984. Another movie came out today. Can you believe it? It's called Ghostbusters. Let's go cleanse our palates of the slime by saying Ghostbusters.
He slimed me. That's great!
Real talk, I still can't believe Ghostbusters and Gremlins came out on the same damn day. The 80s was the golden era for Kino, man. I was born too late. Can you imagine? No, I'm serious. Picture this. It's June 8th, 1984. You just bought a Big Mac from McDonald's. It cost you $2.50. You go to the movies to catch a double feature of Gremlins and Ghostbusters, two films that were so damn good, they reshaped our understanding of cinema. I mean, Gremlins is the reason we have a PG-13 rating. Apparently, a naked woman is fine for PG, but Gremlins was too scary and too violent, but not scary and not violent enough for an R rating. I think it's funny how American sensibilities have changed over time. Nowadays, bare breasts in a feature will absolutely get you an R rating, but you can get away with quite a bit of comic mischief, violence, and scary imagery, even like PG films. This trend would only continue from here. 1988 reminded us that slime can be scary as hell with the remake of The Blob. Slime would be an integral part of making horror films more viscerally scary without overly relying on gore. The Fly had a decent amount of slime, as did The Thing, which I can't show any footage of, not even a minute, because YouTube flags the whole damn film as being a mature content, no matter what I seem to do, so whatever. Just pretend that this footage is actually footage of the little head spider crawling around in The Thing. Yeah, look at that. That was pretty scary. The Mario movie? Oh, there's some goopiness in that film too. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, had a main antagonist whose name was Ivan Ooze, and his whole fucking power set was that he, you guessed it, did stuff with ooze. But why? Why so much slime? Well, I have a few theories. And they really are just theories, because this whole sliminess thing doesn't really seem to be a common observation, so there isn't much information out there on it. The conversations I have been able to find about the topic have been sparse. One Reddit thread asks the question, were the movies in the 80s slimy because of Cold War fears? What? At first I thought, well, it's probably because there was such a huge market for special effects in the 80s, but not a lot of special effects artists. So the artists that did get work tended to use the same techniques on all the movies they worked on. This was logical to me, but it turned out to not be correct, much to my surprise. Cross-referencing a buttload of movies from the era, very few, if any, share significant numbers of special effects professionals, if any. I might have missed a few here or there. Feel free to correct me in the comments, because I know that you will! But I was surprised. It seemed that everyone came to the slimy conclusion independently of one another. So, then there must have been an origin point, right? A film that was slimy and really, really successful. A film that would have had a massive impact on cinema as a whole that everyone wanted to emulate in some way. Oh yeah, look at him drip. The slime really makes the xenomorph seem gross and alien. But also, my second theory applies here as well. And that is that slime is an easy way to create a kind of gross-out horror without needing to rely on gore. You see, gore isn't considered to be scary, it's considered to be gross. At some point, special effects artists came to the conclusion that you can elicit the same response from the audience by showing them slime as you can by having a gory scene. Or at least close enough. See, it was the 80s, and having excessively gory sequences in films was still seen as being somewhat in bad taste. And if not explicitly in bad taste, just unnecessary and reserved for a specific kind of film. Not all horror movies had to be bloodbaths, and not all action movies had to be splatterfests. I think I got that backwards. This meant that you could elicit the emotional response of having gore in, say, a family-friendly film like the Ninja Turtles movie or the Mario Brothers movie. It doesn't hurt that this was also the golden age of practical special effects as well. Computer animation technology for films was still in what we nowadays would consider its infancy. I guess what I'm trying to suggest is that 80s slime was the modern green screen, in the sense that if you wanted to have good special effects, it just worked. It looked good, so you did it. Although, I think I'd argue that the slime worked a lot better. Watching these old films, I never once got the impression that the slime was fake, because it wasn't fake. These actors were out here getting slimy. The green screens, though? Yeah. I started noticing the green screens back during Avengers, and they've only gotten sloppier and more obvious. It's harder and harder to suspend my disbelief when I can definitely tell that everything is a green screen. Nothing looks real. My pattern-seeking monkey brain can tell that they're not on a real set. So here's the burning question on everyone's mind. What actually was this stuff? The texture of it is pretty consistent across its appearances, so there must have been a standard way of creating it, especially in such large quantities. Which I think was another advantage of slime. You could use a lot of it. Well, thanks to how popular Ghostbusters is and how important slime is to that movie, I mean, there's a character named Slimer in it, so I think slime's playing a big role here. We've got some insight. Ghostbusters 2016 had slime, but professional idiot Paul Feig, whatever, whatever, was like, ooh, it's a big ol' secret, hee. Fuck that. Baby, we got the real recipe. The slime in Ghostbusters was made of 2 key ingredients, thickening agents known as methocel and 𝓤𝓾𝓫. Methocel is a general use thickening agent used in adhesives and lubricant, as well as some other things. As for 𝓤𝓾𝓫, the only references I can find to it refer to the recipe for the slime from Ghostbusters. So either it's not a real material, or the material's gone unused in anything for so long that the internet just doesn't care about it anymore. After that, add food coloring and water, and bada bing bada boom, you got your Ghostbusters slime. According to the interviews, they claim that the slime is edible. However, I think they're using the wrong term. Edible means that your body can digest the material. What I think they mean is that the slime is food contact safe. Unless methocel is digestible, which I don't think it is if it's a material used in lube and adhesives. As for 𝓤𝓾𝓫, I believe it's possible that 𝓤𝓾𝓫 is used in water thickener. Basically, the material is okay to swallow, but it is not food. Things that are edible are food, like cake, but the food-safe glitter dust that you can put on cake, that's food safe, but it is not food. Some sources I've read said that many films would use a formula similar to that of 𝓢𝓾𝓫𝓷𝓵, a NASA-invented lubricant that would, eventually, be marketed and sold as a sex lube. Some films apparently just use straight-up corn syrup, sometimes corn syrup and water. Basically, if you could figure out a way to make the water thick, you got slime. Nowadays, you can just buy water thickener. It's made for people who have a hard time swallowing water, among other things. It definitely gives the water a consistency you would refer to as slimy, and it doesn't take a lot of the water thickener to make a lot of the slime. This kind of slime isn't really prevalent in films today. To my best recollection, my unreliable haunt memory trademark, I think the last time I saw a movie use slime like this was Jurassic Park in only a couple of scenes. Aside from obvious throwbacks like the Ghostbuster remake, which I didn't fucking see that. I'm sure the 90s had more slime outings, like obvious sequels like Gremlins 2 and Troll 2. You know, I feel like it's a rite of passage to have that specific clip show up on your YouTube channel at some point. Maybe I'll actually talk about that movie sometime, now that it's, what, 30 years old? Damn.